Today, with the first pick, we're looking at the top 25 NFL players 25 years or younger. Remember those days, Rick? What were you doing when you were 25?
Oh, boy. I can't even remember those days.
Yeah, me either. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was living in Boston.
I'm sure you had hair back then, though, didn't you?
Had a head full of hair. May have had a goatee.
Yeah.
It was the 90s.
Yeah,
Time to be alive. 25, you weren't yet in the league?
Yeah, I was in the league.
Okay. Detroit or Blesto?
Blesto for Detroit.
Blesto for Detroit. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I was off and running.
You weren't yet writing scouting reports on your brother while he was still playing for the Lions yet.
Yeah, that we didn't get into that. There's a whole nother segment if me and my brother were on there. When he got mad at me when I said he was only a 2-down Mike linebacker.
Unbelievable. Hey, if nothing else, you're brutally honest. I can attest to that for sure. Anyway, we're going to look at these top 25 NFL players, 25 years younger. We'll talk about which rookies have the best chance to be on the list a year from now. I'm Ryan Wilson. That, of course, is Rick Spielman. This is episode 165. And Rick, before we get going, how many days until the 2025?
Your computer thing's getting faster. Usually we have to wait.
I know. I practiced a little bit on it.
Yeah, producer Harry, did you know that there are 302 days left until the 2025 NFL draft?
Weird.
Ryan, I don't know if we have enough time. We're going to have to really start working at this to hack away at this next year's class.
It's funny you say that because guess what's on the way? Summer scouting's almost upon us. We'll officially we'll officially fire things up next week with the old quarterbacks, and we'll be joined by Mike Renner as we work our way through every position. So look for those shows in the coming days and week. Before we get going, Rick and producer Harry, get your finger ready. We've obtained some exclusive footage of you at the local gym prepping for an upcoming pickleball tournament.
What? There's no way. He has an attachment? Bro, this can't be real. This guy can't be real. Where is he? He's gone.
All right, go ahead, Rick. We had the volume on the clip. If you're listening, it was what Rick looked like probably in his 20s, muscle shirt, sunglasses on in the gym, had the paddle ball hooked up there. You still got the muscles. Had the paddle ball hooked up to the bicep curl machine and was going at it. What do you think of that?
I like that training regime. In fact, I may implement that. And I do have to watch because there are cameras everywhere, especially on the island where there's only like 20 people living here in the summer. So you got to be careful of what you're doing and what people are seeing out there. But I have the utmost respect for that drill, and I will be implementing that into my regime and routine here shortly.
Hey, that guy was in good shape, so he must have been doing something right. As WTFP listener Glenn Naughton pointed out to me on Twitter, don't give Rick any ideas.
Too late.
Too late. One more piece of housekeeping, and it's almost like you were meant to work for the Kansas City Chiefs, Rick, because this headline was straight up. I got several tweets from listeners as well about this. You know what this one is?
No.
You got the headline ready, producer Harry? Chiefs will be featured in Hallmark film Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story.
Oh, God. I would love that. Can I be an extra?
I was going to say, you got to call your agent and get in on that because you know Andy Reid. I don't know what his connection is to the producers of the Hallmark series, but you're a big Hallmark guy. Maybe you and CD Charles Davis can get cameos in this thing.
Yeah, no, that was my ultimate goal. I have a checklist in life on things I wanted to do, and one of those is be an extra, at least on Hallmark.
Production of the movie, according to the story here on CBSSports.com by Chris Bingle, will begin in August. Ed Begley Jr. is going to be a member of the cast.
Wow.
So this could be something in Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story. Alana Hickman wants to enter her family to a contest that crowns the biggest fan of the year contest. So there you go. That's right up your alley.
Yeah, I just got to figure out what role do you think I would be in a Hallmark movie?
You could play the Chiefs general manager. You got some experience doing that.
Brett Beach.
You could be Brett Beach. I think you could handle that one. I don't know. Can you be sensitive?
I can be sensitive. I can fake cry.
Okay. Well,
I could be very emotional when I have to be.
Get on the horn to your agent. Get this thing going. All right. So that's a little fun there here in the middle of, or late June, actually. Pickleball Rick and Hallmark Rick. Things to look forward to.
Did you know that they actually, and I was out of town, which I was totally heartbroken, was that at a resort here on the island, they filmed a beach scene for a Hallmark movie last August. And I was out of town when they filmed it. I saw the email while I was in undisclosed locations around this country, asking for any locals that would like to be part of a Hallmark movie up with the extras. And all they had to do was a beach party. All they had to do was walk around and act like one of the crowd. I was excited yet disappointed because I really didn't envision myself in a specific role. Like, I know the specific role of this show.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm just the guy in a corner giving opinions and listening to you, the boss, and trying to get you corrected as we go along in a very respectful manner, I might say.
Okay, sure.
So this one, I would have just blended in, but I think somehow if I was there, I would have done something to make sure that everybody knew that I was in a Hallmark movie.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you would have stood out even as an extra to make it known that you were in the scene. Some might even say you would have stolen the scene.
Well, if let's say, because, you know, like Hallmark is right 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the show ends, it's the build up, the relationship. Then they have some kind of breakup. And then with 3 minutes left to go in the show, every show, it all comes back together. What if I would have like honed in at the end of the show and maybe tried to make a move on the woman that was going to get together with the guy, and I intervened?
I think that would make for great riveting television. I love that idea. I think you should do that. So make a note. Also, make a note, Producer Harry, to tell the listeners that to skip ahead 4 minutes when we get to this part, in case they want to hear some football talk. But yeah, I love that idea, Rick. I think you should definitely do it, and hopefully we will be there with cameras to capture it, because I don't think it will get to air. But
yeah, well, if not, then make sure you bring some money so you can bail me out of jail.
Right. I'll bring 2 nickels. Your favorite 2 nickels. I'll bring those. All right, let's get to it. Pickleball and Hallmark will have to wait. So, Rick, our colleague Cody Benjamin puts out a list every summer, the top 25 NFL players, 25 years old or younger. You can find it right now on CBSSports.com. We'll be using that as a starting point of our discussion here. Which players are ranked too low, too high, just right, who was snubbed, and who can we expect to see make the list after a standout rookie season a year from now. First things first, quick look at the top 10, and we'll get into it. I'll count down from 10 to 9 for people listening, and then we'll get going here. Number 10, Brock Purdy. Then C.J. Stroud at 9. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8. Jalen Waddle. CeeDee Lamb. Sauce Gardner at 5. Penei Sewell at 4. Man, got some Lions on this list. At 3, Jamar Chase. 2, Micah Parsons. At number 1, Justin Jefferson. So let's start with Justin Jefferson, the man you drafted, the man who just signed a deal that pays him $35 million a year because he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He only played 40% of the snaps last year, Rick, because of I believe it was a hamstring injury, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any issues with him being on the list once again in back-to-back years? He was on the list a year ago when we had this conversation as well.
No. No. Yeah. For a guy that missed, I believe, 7 or 8 games with a hamstring and still have over 1,000 receiving yards.
Right.
Also, with Kirk Cousins going out in the middle of the season with his Achilles and the quarterback carousel that they had going on, and yet he still produced over 1,000 yards in half a season. I thought that's an incredible feat and why he got paid the contract that he did.
Yeah, so he was number 1 last year. He's number 1 this year. Played just 40% of the time. As you mentioned, still got over 1,000 receiving yards. So important to what they did offensively. His teammate, Jordan Addison, a rookie, didn't make the list. He had a huge season in the absence of JJ. And sometimes what happens is everyone else struggles at wide receiver because you don't have your number 1 guy there. Should he have been on this list?
I don't know. There were some other guys that I thought were worthy. There were a couple guys I know we'll get into here shortly that I thought were deleted from the list that should have been on the list. At least we were allowed to pick, according to producer Harry, we were only allowed to pick 1, but I had numerous that I would have put up there. But I picked 1, just like because I like to follow directions.
You do like to follow directions.
And but we'll get into that. But I did not think he deserved to be on the list. Good player, yes. great number 2 receiver opposite. And when they not only lost Justin Jefferson, they lost T.J. Hawkinson as well. And he stepped up to try to fill that void and did an admirable job.
Sure did, for sure. Some players who turned 26 that were on the list last year that are no longer eligible, but still great players. Quentin Williams, DK Metcalf, Josh Jacobs, Justin Herbert, Nick Bosa at 3, and then Jalen Hurts at 2. One name that was eligible, Rick, that wasn't on the list, and I went back and looked at last year's rundown, and this was a player that last year you thought was ranked too low at 12, is now the highest paid player in the NFL, is 25 or younger, not on the list. Trevor Lawrence. How do you feel about that?
I can see. Did I say that last year? I was actually right on something on the show.
You said he was ranked too low last year.
Yeah.
But this year's not on the list at all. So I don't know if were you right?
Yeah. No, I thought he should have been on the list last year, and I thought
Okay.
it was too low because of the way he finished. I think what we saw in 23 wasn't the same version that we saw in the
Right.
second half of 22. So I can understand why he's, right at the edge of that. Because he's got to cut down the turnovers. They got to do better on third down. But he did play through a lot of injuries last year. So I expect him to have a rebound year. And I thought Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson, those guys made the right move of getting him locked up, because there's a lot of conversation right now and even some disagreement on should he have gotten that type of contract. But I do think that at his age and where he's going to go and how he's going to ascend, I think it's well-deserved.
I agree with everything you said. I think he was better in 2022 than 2023. You talked about the reasons why. Who on planet Earth is not going to pay Trevor Lawrence? What's plan B?
There's no plan B.
Right. That's how quarterbacks work. You have to pay him, right?
Yeah, no, that's why I'm interested to see what plan B is for Dallas if they don't do Dak Prescott.
What about, let me ask you this. Who gets paid more? Or here's how I should put the question. Will Tua be the next highest paid quarterback, or will he have to get something 50 to 55 million range?
Well, I think that they will get something done. I don't know if it'll be at Lawrence's level, although if you just look statistically,
Right.
I'd say he should be. But I'm imagine sitting in the front office side when you see that Trevor Lawrence deal come in, and maybe you were willing to pay him 52.
Yeah.
Which is still an extraordinary amount of money. But now you see that Trevor Lawrence is getting 55 or whatever it ended up coming out. Now all of a sudden you got some work to do between now and training camp, because if I'm his agent, look at my stats compared to Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Both young guys, both getting ready to hit the prime of their career. I want that money.
So if you were the general manager, have you in the past, would you say things like, well, one of the issues is player X can't stay healthy? Would you say that about Tua if you were negotiating as the GM?
Last year, yeah, they come back and say, well, Tua did stay healthy. He played the whole season. Then I would come back, well, he's got to play better on the road. He's got to play better when the weather is cold. He hasn't won a playoff game, yada, yada, yada.
So you each go back and forth with your checklist, basically.
Yes. Yeah, that's part of the negotiation eventually. But I always thought negotiation was working with the agent, not trying to get a win, but trying to get something where both sides were satisfied with the outcome.
So what if the agent comes in day one and says, we're not taking less than highest paid? Then where do you go from there?
Well, that's when you have some work to do.
Okay.
So, and eventually, I mean, they shoot for here, you shoot for here. Hopefully you can find somewhere in the middle where you both are satisfied and it's a win-win for each side.
Are you okay? And we'll take a break after this before we get going into this thing. Are you okay with Trevor being off, or should he be in the range or replace one of CJ Stroud at 9, Brock Purdy at 10, Jordan Love at 11 on this list?
No, he didn't play as well as those guys did.
Okay. All right. I agree with that. You're getting soft in your old age, Rick. We're agreeing on a lot of things. And I've had a sneak peek at our quarterback rankings for next week's show on the summer scouting. Buckle up, because you're looking a lot like Ryan Wilson these days.
It's amazing how much you taught me about this since I've been doing this podcast with
Can you imagine?
Thank you.
All right. On that note, producer Harry, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll get into some of the guys who are ranked too low, ranked too high, and ranked just right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Rick, I mentioned a year ago, ranked too low for you was Trevor Lawrence at 12. I said Justin Herbert was ranked too low at 6. Yeah, that was probably just about right for Justin Herbert. He's now 26, so he's off the list. And we just talked about Trevor Lawrence. Ranked too low for you this year. Who do you got?
Ranked too low or too high? Too
Let's
low?
start with, too low. Let's start with too low.
Who did I go with too low?
Can we tell you?
I know who I did.
Okay, who you got?
Aiden Hutchinson at number.
He's at 22.
I think that he is a dominant player. I think that he's made a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. Again, another great job by Brad Holmes taking in a very good football player. He did not have a lot of help opposite him. So all of the protections and offenses honed in. He's one of those guys where the offenses say, we can't let him wreck the game. And so he had a lot of attention on the defensive side of the ball. He didn't have another partner on the opposite side to say, well, okay, if they take Aiden Hutchinson away, then we have to worry about this guy. So for way the offense is schemed to take him out, the energy and effort, I think his energy and effort on how he plays is the same level as a Max Crosby.
Oh, wow.
Okay. On how much he loves to play the game and how fun he is to watch. So if Davenport can come in and contribute and stay healthy and they can get some guys back, I still think they need another legit edge pass rusher. But I think he's going to even explode. But for what he does on that defense and the tone setter he is and the energy he brings on that defense and what an impact he has, I thought he should have been ranked higher.
So if my math is correct, and who knows if it is, 20% of this list?
I put him, I think he should have been up in the teens at least. I mean, his impact for Detroit's defense is way more important or way more, that stood out more than maybe Chris Olave at 17 with the New Orleans Saints. I thought he should have been ahead of there. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a good football player. Devontae Smith, who we'll talk about, Kyle Hamilton, all are impact type players for the defense. So I thought he should have been right in that mix there.
20% of this list is made up of Detroit Lions players under 26 years old. So again, going back to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and Chris Spielman.
They have a pretty good nucleus of young guys.
Oof. And oh, by the way, Terry and Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw going to help with the secondary. They have Kirby Joseph, who was eligible for this list. I can't imagine he's 25 plus yet. So this thing's, I would imagine Aaron Glenn had a pretty good last few months getting that defensive.
Yeah, no, they were very aggressive attacking their weakness. And last year, you can argue their offense was, if not the top, one of the tops in the league last year, but their defense couldn't hold up as well. Now, some of that was, I thought Aaron Glenn did a phenomenal job because with their aggressive style of going for it on fourth down, and they didn't get it, it ends up putting the defense in some tough situations. But I think with the roster moves that they made this offseason, that you'll see a much improved Detroit Lions defense.
I don't disagree. All right. Next up, one of the players, I didn't follow the rules. You're a rule follower. I'm not. I named a couple players that I thought were ranked too low.
Oh, God.
This is where we differ. I've taught you a lot of things, but the part that I haven't taught you is to break the rules occasionally. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. He's at number 6. You're like, yeah, that sounds okay. But CeeDee Lamb was first in receptions among players 25 years and younger, first in targets, first in yards, first in receiving touchdowns. He was targeted 30% of the time, which is first among all receivers and tight ends. So he was an integral part to what they did. That's no surprise if you watch him play at all. You can go down the list of both normal and advanced analytics, and his name is usually at the top. So 6, you might say, is pretty high. I think CeeDee Lamb had a better season than Jamar Chase, who's 3rd. What do you think about that?
I would say the only reason was because Joe Burrow wasn't healthy last year and Dak Prescott was.
Fair enough.
So I would say some of that may have been due to the quarterback play as well in Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah, and look, man, if you draft Jamar Chase and you don't get CeeDee Lamb or vice versa, you're still in pretty good shape. I would have put him a little bit higher. We'll talk a little bit later about Sauce Gardner. He could have been slipped past him. Panay Sewell at 4 feels about right, so I don't necessarily think Panay should be moved down. The other player I was interested in mentioning here, Brock Purdy at 10. It feels like Brock Purdy is consistently pigeonholed as a game manager and a great system with great players around him, and all that stuff is true, both offense and defense. He's still having to throw the ball and make the decisions to get the ball out on time and throw it in anticipation, all those other things. He's at 10. That's okay. Would you put him ahead of CJ Stroud at 9 and maybe even Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8?
No, I think he's perfect where he's at. He had that little lull there where they lost 3 games in a row last year.
Yeah.
But
Trent Williams was hurt in those games too.
Yeah, but he is a top 10 quarterback, a top 10, 25 under 25. But CJ, I thought, had a phenomenal year, especially for the first time going out there as a rookie and performing the way he performed. And he really elevated the Houston Texans, probably without the same supporting cast that maybe a Brock Purdy had.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna think of a team that needed a quarterback this year. Let's say the Patriots, for example. They didn't have Drake May, but they could have had their choice between CJ at 9, Brock at 10, or Jordan Love at 11. Who should the Patriots have taken?
CJ.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, all those guys had great seasons, and Brock at 10 is me pushing it a little bit, but I thought he doesn't get necessarily the due he's deserved because of all the things surrounding him, and I get all that part too. That said, he's going to be making $55 million a year pretty soon.
Yeah, he is. One more year. Just hang in there in the minimum salary.
Yeah, if he can live in Northern California for one more year, $900,000, he'll be able to buy the house that he wants. All right, next up, ranked too high. You know who you got, Rick?
I do.
Who you got?
Jalen Waddle.
At number 7 currently.
Yeah, I didn't think he was a top 10. And the reason, not that he's not an explosive playmaker, but he's a number 2 behind Tyreek Hill. So he has a partner with him. And my biggest concern is the durability part. That even though he's small, he does not stay on the field because of durability concerns. So when I looked at this, if you're in the top 10, you're lining up for 17 weeks, in my opinion, and you're playing at a high level.
I think he was on the field. He was healthy this year. I think last year he was a little banged up. Year before last, I mean.
Yeah, but he's banged up this year. Every year he's banged up.
That's true. He does come out. Yep.
Yeah. So I would just say that durability was more of a concern with me to put him in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I get that. And you mentioned you'd rather have Devonta Smith, his former teammate at Alabama.
Yeah, because again, he's a number 2. He's got AJ Brown, but he does not miss games. For a small guy, he's out there and performs week in and week out. So I would have had Devonta Smith ahead of him.
Did you have huge concerns about Devonta Smith's size because he was so?
Everybody did. Yeah, everybody's going to talk about it, but he's end up being an exception to the rule with his size. But he didn't miss any time. There's a history there. Never missed any time in Alabama either.
Yeah. And he's a little taller than Jalen Waddle. He may not be thicker. Jalen's pretty small.
No. Yeah, but Jalen may be a little thicker. But Devonta, he's like 165, 170 maybe in the 170s.
Yeah, those were the good old days. I'll tell you that. All right. Next up, ranked too high for me. And this is going to feel
Did you do like 4 again and break the rules?
No, I just did 1 on this one. And I love this player, and he's a really good player. But I thought he had a better 2022 than 2023. And in 2022, he was ranked 7th. In this round that Cody Benjamin put out, he's ranked 5th. Sauce Gardner.
Yes.
A little too high. Oh, you do?
I do.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, again, I love Sauce Gardner. He's a cornerback 1. He's as close as you can get to shutdown corner in today's NFL, so on and so forth. But I thought he wasn't quite as effective as he was his rookie season. And somehow he went up 2 spots in the rankings. I'm not faulting Cody Benjamin. This is an incredibly tough job to do, but I would have put him down a little lower. And I mentioned earlier, someone like CeeDee Lamb, even if he moves up 1 spot from 5 to 6, I think he had a better season CeeDee did than Sauce Gardner for just looking at the overall way they played. All right, you're not going to push back on that one, huh?
No.
Love it. All right, this is interesting. Ranked just right. last year's winner in 2022, the 2022 season, Justin Jefferson, back-to-back winner. You're okay with him being number one, even though he played just 40% of the time?
Yeah, and like I said, for him to produce the way he produced after he missed all that time, and to me, how he elevated that offense by himself without TJ Hawkinson when he got hurt, and with the quarterback carousel, he still performed the way he did, and took advantage of the opportunities. Now, it'd have been interesting if Kirk had stayed completely healthy and Justin had, what type of, I would have predicted 2,000 out of him. So I'm going to give him credit where credit is due, and him staying at the same level when he came back from that hamstring, even with the rotation at the quarterback that Minnesota had last year.
All right, so here's the question. Without Kirk Cousins, I think Kirk Cousins was Justin Jefferson's quarterback every single year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sam Darnold / JJ McCarthy / whomever else plays quarterback. So JJ has gone for 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards, 1,800 yards, and 1,000 last year when he only played in 10 games. 1,300 yards over under. Let's break out the old dollar bet thing here, Harry. Yeah, Harry, love it. 1,450, more or less for JJ. I'll take the other side.
What's the other side?
Well, whatever you take for the dollar bet, I'll just go. If you say he goes higher, I'll say he goes lower, vice versa. So 1,350 yards for JJ with Sam Darnold and company throwing the football.
I'm going to say without Kirk Cousins, it's going to be lower.
Yeah, I think I went too high with 1,350. All right, write that down, Harry. I'll take over 1,350. If he doesn't, we won't make any caveats about injuries or nothing. We'll just assume he stays healthy. And oh boy, that's heavy lifting. 1,350. He did that the first 3 years. He got that, and sometimes easily with Kirk Cousins. But there's a huge drop off between Kirk Cousins and not Kirk Cousins. So if Kevin O'Connell can work his magic with Sam Darnold, great for JJ. If not, bad for my pocketbook. All right. Love that graphic, Harry. Great job. All right. So you have him ranked just right, Justin Jefferson. I broke the rules on this one.
Oh, God.
Out at 9. I feel like that's
CJ. You did 9?
No. CJ Stroud at 9. I think that's ranked just right. He could be higher. He was a top 5 quarterback last year, but I want to see how year 2 goes. I don't expect there to be a backslide, but just in the name of patience. So CJ Stroud at 9. He was the first quarterback on this list. Yep, he was, which is crazy. Wow. And then he was followed immediately by Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. So I think that part is all right. And the other one I mentioned, and I think this guy, another guy who came, Kyle Hamilton at 14. He's quietly become one of the best safeties in the NFL. You agree with that? Yes,
because of the way they use him.
Yes.
And Mike McDonald, like I said, I got an opportunity to sit with him this offseason, and a brilliant defensive mind, and brilliant at taking a guy like Kyle Hamilton and utilizing what he does best, putting him in situations where he's going to excel. And when you can get a coach that recognizes the unique traits that Hamilton has and implement them into your scheme, very good.
Because the issue with Kyle is that he ran in the 4.7, something.
Yeah, but I looked at that, and when you watched that 40 time, he came down the chute and he went to the left and to the right. He probably ran 42 yards. Because if you look at the end zone angle and you want to see if those guys run straight down the line,
right? And
he went here, then here, then got back on track. So to me, it was like running 42 yards.
And he did run better his pro day. Yeah. But the problem, fair or not, once you see that number, it's hard to erase it from your mind.
Unless you go and dig on why it's different what you see on tape than what he ran. And then when I went back and looked at it and saw him kind of stumble out of the block a little bit and they didn't pull him up, and then him weaving coming out of his stance, that was the reason why he ran a slower time, not because he's not fast.
Yeah, and again, sort of the Brian Branch syndrome. He played much faster than certainly 4.7. I think it was that Florida State game where his sideline to sideline ability.
I was at that game.
Okay, so he had 2 interceptions in that game, I think. At least one big one on the sidelines.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
So you see that and you go, okay, well, which one of these am I not going to believe? And I think you lean
That
towards
was a game that I got kicked out of off the sideline pregame.
Were you trying to your hallmark moment? You trying to get in on a shot?
No, we were all like, we're not supposed to be, or there was some kind of rule that Florida State had put in, and there was like, I remember Brandon Beaner, about 4 or 5 GMs there for that Florida State Notre Dame game, because it was the opener. I believe it went into overtime. It was a great game. So we went down to get body types, and the security, we heard that we were okay to go down there. The security didn't get it, so they're trying to round up all the guys, the scouts, try to kick them out. And I saw them starting to round up guys. So I went to the other sideline.
Yep, that sounds right.
And then I seen security guys looking around. Then there was a big group of recruits in the end zone. And so I went down there and kind of stood in the middle of all the recruits. And then
like you're one of the fathers?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden 4 of them came right on top of me and told me that I had to leave. My fault. I didn't know.
Rick is producer here, if you don't know, one of the most honest and high integrity people you'll know, except when it comes to getting into places to watch football players. He will do anything.
I got a job to do.
He's got a job to do. They got you, though. They got you. Now your face is on the do not serve this guy inside the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that game was a huge game for Kyle Hamilton to start his final year at Notre Dame. And the end of the story is that the Ravens got a bargain on a player in the middle of the first round that could have been a top 10 pick for sure. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some guys we thought should have been on this list that didn't make it this time. We'll talk about that right after this.
Ready to ride?
Do you know who you're talking to?
I'm aware regardless. Celebrate a new season of The Shy.
I vow to show up for those that need help, those that just need somebody to listen.
And enjoy even more powerful series.
Oh my God.
Is that it?
And groundbreaking movies.
You only get one life and you have to live it to the fullest.
This is my community. I love y'all.
We on the rise. Black Voices. Explore the collection on Paramount Plus.
All right, Rick. Snubs. And last year, our snubs list, you had Brian Burns didn't make the list last year. He's 26 now, so he's not eligible. Do you think it would have been on the list this year if he were 25? It'd have been close, right?
It'd have been close. Yeah.
And look who I had on the list last year that I thought was snubbed. Aiden Hutchinson as a rookie.
Yes.
Man, we're both getting paychecks from the Lions the way we talk about this team. All right.
How do you think I got my brother on?
I didn't get the free Lions swag either. So maybe next year. All right. Snubs this year. You did one. I literally did like 5 guys. All right. You can do some extra guys if you want while I talk. Who's your guy?
My guy was Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not have the defensive rookie of the year on the top 25 under 25?
Yep.
And we talked about him when we did our rookie reports through the fall. And I can't remember a game where we didn't say this kid didn't come out there and play as hard as he could and had an impact on the game. So my biggest snub is Will Anderson Jr. And to me, if you get defensive rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year, you almost should get an automatic bid on being the top 25 under 25.
Would you, and this is going to be hard for you to because I know you love Will Anderson Jr. and you love this young man too. At 25, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Will Anderson probably outplayed Jahmyr Gibbs.
I think Will Anderson Jr. should have been in the teens or in the low 20s.
Ahead of, I'm just going to go through edge rushers here. Ahead of Aiden Hutchinson?
I would say right snubbed up with him.
Okay. And is that the only edge rusher on this list? It might be.
Which I don't understand. But there's maybe
except for Micah Parsons at 2. Yeah. You're not going to put him ahead of Micah, but everything else. Yeah. So there are 2 edge rushers. You're vying for 3. I'm not going to push back against that. I mean, you're not putting him ahead of Sam Laporta at 24, and Sam Laporta could be higher.
I think Aiden Hutchinson could be higher.
Yeah. All right. Man, we got a couple guys on this list drafted by Rick Spielman. Christian Darrisaw at 22. You must have been pretty good at your job, Rick.
Got me on the podcast.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, I went from Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw as my last 2 first-round picks to getting fired and being on a podcast with you.
To undrafted free agent Ryan Wilson. Could you ever have imagined? That's why when people say, "What's your 5-year plan?" It's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. You won't be able to figure it out."
I'm trying to figure out a 5-minute plan, to be honest with you.
Yeah. This has been a tough stretch for you, Rick, but you're hanging in there. I give you credit.
Yep, that's just got to keep rolling.
That's why you go to the gym and do your pickleball exercises.
I can't wait to start doing bicep curls with my pickleball paddle.
There you go. I love that. I love that guy. Hey, man, credit to that guy for trying to get better. All right, here's some names on my list. I won't linger on them, but you just tell me yes or no if you think they should have made the list. Deron Bland, cornerback for the Cowboys.
No.
What? He had 9 interceptions last year, I believe.
Yeah, but he also got exposed a couple games.
Yeah.
Good corner.
Live with the sword, die by the sword. All right, Nico Collins.
No.
Oh, man. He just got paid, too. I think 25-ish million, something in that range, 3 years, in large part because he finally played like we thought he would, and C.J. Stroud and Bobby Slowick, yay. Rashawn Slater.
No.
Why do you say it like that?
Because he's got durability concerns, too.
Yeah, all right. Tyler Linderbaum, another great Ravens pick.
Yeah, I love him. I thought he should have made the list. I was going between him and Will Anderson Jr.
Okay. Creed Humphrey made the list, deservedly so, but I think Tyler very quietly, and Creed was actually 12th, very quietly had a really good season. And finally, this is a player who didn't play his last year at Stanford because of COVID. He opted out, and he had some first-round buzz coming into that year. He was ended up being a day 2 pick, and he's quietly had a really good career for the Saints. Paulson Adebo, cornerback.
Yeah, but no, I would say no. But
okay.
All right. But he's definitely a top corner.
If you can only have one corner for your team, Paulson Adebo or Deron Bland?
Bland.
Oh, all right. Next up, rookies locked to be on the team next year. Going back 12 months in the old vault here. Rick, you had Bijan. I had Jameer. So Bijan was thwarted by Arthur Smith. And Jameer was not thwarted by anybody. He actually played really well. Big part of that offense. And he's going to, it feels like he's going to have a breakout year this year, doesn't it?
Yeah. He's going to be pretty good.
22. This year, who you got, Rick?
I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels.
You took the Ryan Wilson low-hanging fruit award on that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that with what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do, with Eckler, with some of the receivers that they have, the tight ends, they had Sennett, who they also took, which was another one of my favorite picks in the draft. He's going to have to grow, but I think you see these quarterbacks with the athleticism that a Jaden Daniels has as he learns to get through his progressions and go through the passing game and the protections. The one thing he can rely on is his ability to make plays with his legs. So I'm going to think Jaden Daniels is going to be the one that will be on this list next year.
Yeah, he went number 2 overall. Last year, C.J. Stroud went number 2 overall, and C.J. exceeded everyone's expectations except maybe his. Well, what a fantastic season. If Jaden gives you 75% of that, Washington's going to the playoffs, and they're going to be extremely happy. And all and I know it's that time of year where you only hear positive things, but all the things coming out of Washington is that he's a hard worker, first one in, last one out, studies hard, so on and so forth. So that's better than not saying those things, I suppose. Picks for next year for me, the layup is Caleb Williams. I'm not going to stay on that one. My rat hole player, to borrow a phrase from you, Ladd McConkey.
Ooh.
He's my Puka Nacua candidate for breakout. Now, they may not throw the ball very much, but you do have Justin Herbert. So I would imagine, and you're replacing Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is gone. You have Josh Palmer. You have Quentin Johnson, who you hopefully plays better in year 2. But I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey. Apparently, things have been going pretty well during the mini camps and OTAs between those two. But again, shorts and T-shirts, we'll see how that changes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because is there another receiver on the roster right now that you can name's better than him? Quentin Johnston is not. Josh Palmer, right? If he gets healthy, they don't have a true legit number 1 or number 2 receiver. So I think that they with where he's at from route running ability and his football intelligence, the way he knows how to get open. I do have a little bit of concern with the durability with him.
Yep.
But
he had an ankle last year that limited him at times, I believe.
Yes. But I do think that with what they have, he may be the number one target at receiver this year.
All right, man. Maybe it's just the summertime and you're happy to be taking a break, but you've been incredibly
agreeable. We get a break.
You've been incredibly agreeable recently. By the way, I should mention this. I forgot to mention at the time. Ranked too high last year on our list. You said Justin Fields at 25. You nailed that one. I said Josh Jacobs at 16. I was wrong about that. He actually had a good year last year. Ranked just right a year ago. Tristan Wirfs at 9 is what you said. I said Sauce Gardner at 7. We talked about him. And everything else we have touched on. All right, Rick, that was nice and easy. Easing into the weekend.
Painless
even. But the pain's about to return because we got to do summer scouting.
Yeah, here we go.
Got to do summer scouting next.
But you remember my rule. I'm usually very nice until it gets down to the nitty gritty and we get 100 days out.
Yeah, that is true. And you kept to that.
I did. I will be very agreeable, but once the 100-day mark comes before the draft, then let's take the gloves off and we get an opportunity to really express ourselves.
So yeah, I got 200 days of freedom.
Yes, enjoy it.
I look forward to that. All right. So that's it. Leave us a 5-star review if you don't mind on the Old Apple Podcast. You can ask a mailbag question if you want. We're probably getting to the point where you can start recommending candidates, FCS or FBS candidates. We'll get into details on that later. In the meantime, that's a wrap on episode 165. Next week is July 4th as we publish this. So we'll publish our next podcast on Monday, July 1st. And like I mentioned, that'll be the old start of summer scouting. We'll be talking our top 10 quarterbacks alongside Mike Renner, so don't miss them. As always, thanks to my guy Rick. Thanks to Harry for producing. And thanks to all you guys who watch and listen and comment. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.